Harvest time, the fall for me, it's my favorite time of year. You're pulling the crop in, you've had the entire year that you've spent working to be able to finally reap, the reward from those last 50 or 100 acres. It's hard to describe for somebody who hasn't been on the farm, that feeling. It's a crisp October evening. You've just finished a 50-acre field of soybeans. It looks perfect. It's interesting, but that picture, I can summon that at any point in time in terms of a memory. The point in time in which I became, went from this is a cool concept and something to work on to I really want to work in this industry was actually on a trip to Austria. There was two portions of that trip. The first was actually in Germany, where at that point in time we visited with a company in which instead of modifying the vegetable oil to turn it into biodiesel, they had actually designed an engine that would operate on vegetable oils. But then also spent time with a small, it was only a couple million gallons, biodiesel facility that also had a mechanical press associated with it. It was owned by farmers. The farmers delivered their canola and their oilseed sunflowers to this facility. It was then pressed into oil and meal. The oil was turned into biodiesel, and then the biodiesel was used on their farm, and then the meal was taken back to their farm to use as a protein or as an animal feed. It was that closed-loop concept of being able to figure out a way to be able to keep those dollars on the farm that at that point I was like, this is an area I want to work. Now the industry has evolved from that. And that isn't necessarily the model that we see here in the United States from an economic perspective for biodiesel and renewable diesel production. But that was probably the catalyst that really sparked it for me. There's a number of benefits from using biodiesel and renewable diesel and from seeing that industry grow. It's almost like the proverbial onion that you have to peel back the layers. And that first layer that we think about is we have a new product. But the other thing that I like to remind people of is that in agriculture, most of our inputs are somehow related to energy values. And I can point to times in history when we had an oversupply of commodities, so prices were low, but something was going on around the globe that made energy prices high, which meant diesel fuel prices were high, fertilizer prices were high. So if your revenues were down and your input costs were up, we were squeezed as farmers. Post-commercialization of biodiesel and renewable diesel, biodiesel has effectively become a hedge for farmers against energy inflation. So now our fats and oils prices are now linked with energy values. So if energy values rise for some reason around the globe, our fats and oils prices also rise. And that stability to me is tremendous value for agriculture. I've been involved in the biodiesel industry for essentially 30 years now. And 30 years ago, the focus was primarily on the research side. There was one group out in Yellowstone National Park, and they performed a bat test, the bear attraction and toxicity test. They actually wanted to make sure that the emissions, actually the tailpipe emissions, because it smelled like fried food, they wanted to make sure it didn't attract bears in Yellowstone National Park. And it didn't, so all was good. But it seems funny, but that first 10 years was really important because it answered those baseline questions that then allowed us about 20 years ago to start really the commercial phase of introducing it into to commerce, into trucks and buses and school buses, etc. I have two daughters. One of them next fall will be starting college. The other will be starting high school. But interesting enough, I actually learned from them. Most of it at the supper table. Trying to find out what's important to them. And at the dinner table, what matters to them is our environment. I'm not 100% sure whether they will specifically be involved in the biodiesel industry per se, or specifically in terms of farming in the same way that I do. I do know they're proud of what we've accomplished in the biodiesel industry. I continue to be involved in this industry for probably one simple reason. This is the nexus of agriculture and the environment. I can't think of any place else I'd rather be. How do I have a bigger impact on our economy and the environment and the planet all at one time? Simple as that.